the Methodist sister turned around and began to grin. Oh, the Methodist sister turned around and began to grin. You know, the Methodist sister turned around and began to grin. I people start out to drinking whiskey again. Mr. Crump don't allow it, and I'll have it, yeah. Mr. Crump lived in Memphis, he was doing well. Mr. Crump lived in Memphis, he was doing well. Mr. Crump lived in Memphis, he was doing well. He got to be a politician now, it's hard to tell. Mr. Crump don't allow it, and I'll have it, yeah.
Yes, you got to cross the Hudson River before you get to Brownville, Tennessee. Yes, you got to cross the Hudson River before you get to Brownville, Tennessee. When I got to Brownville, Tennessee, old man was standing on the corner and said, son, you ought to slay me. I said, mister, you the hoodoo. And you the fortune telling man. He said, hold your hand. I see blood running through your vein. I said, did you see a woman come through here this morning? Woman come through here dressed all up in red. He said, no, she didn't come on no train. She was walking on natural land. I said, mister, can you tell me why she gone? He said, yes, I can. He said, hold your hand again, let me see. He said, they're not for Tennessee. I said, oh, yeah. Can you tell me where she lives? He said, when you get to Nashville, Tennessee, I want you to take a street to the left. He said, take the street to the left. Street is Hollywood. He said, you look right up over a little door. You see 505. I said, oh, yeah. He sure did tell me the truth. When I got to Nashville and knocked on the door, she said, tell me who told you where I was. I said, baby, you know, people know things. When a man is traveling around, you know, somebody had to tell me where you live. Because everything you ever said real to me. I said, baby, you know I had to find out. She said, girl, you didn't have a thing to worry about. She said, cause you never think I possess. Everything I possess is well to you. She said, you know, I will you my black folk, and I will you my gravy Cadillac. She said, Daddy, when I'm dead and gone, you can ride your women up and down that road. But she said, please don't put no woman out. Don't put no other woman, Daddy, in my home. She said, I will you 2 cars. All that money I possess and in the bank for you. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Nobody knows when he gonna die. said, whenever I die, I have real everything ever says to you. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. I can use it.
How about that? How about that? Hello, friends, music lovers. That was Booker T. Washington White, playing his own composition of Brownsville Blues. And he just told me, Booker did before we started, that song has never been played on the air before, so you just had a treat. Come along with us on a little program of nostalgia, memory, the blues, Mr. Crump's Blues. And that reminds me, the theme song you heard just before we started was Mr. Crump's Blues. Not the authentic version. We'll play that for you in a few minutes with Handy's own voice telling you about it. The version you heard as a theme song was the Son Smith Beale Street Band with little Laura Dukes singing some words that came into being somewhat later than the original authentic words as written by Handy. Here's how Mr. Crump's Blues came about. In 1909, a young red-headed man from Holly Springs, Mississippi, with political ambition, had come to Memphis to seek his fortune. The city was wide open. Beale Street was ridden with vice. Well, the whole city was ridden with vice. Red light districts were wide open, saloons on every corner, Jim Canan's, a bucket of blood, places that have gone down in history as being famous and infamous, were wide open. And this young red-headed man, whose name was Ed Crump, later to be known, of course, as Boss Crump, decided he was going to run for mayor, and if he won, clean up the city. There were two other men running for mayor in that 1909 campaign, and in those days, it was the accepted thing to do to advertise politics, barbecues, weddings, funerals, anything, any kind of an event, by means of a band that was usually drawn around in a horse-drawn vehicle, who, when they had attracted a crowd, would have a speaker who would tell the people what was about to take place. The other two candidates for mayor had hired the other two leading bands of the town, who were Bynum and Eckford's band, this leaving Handy's band to play for Boss Crump. Crump engaged him, and he asked Handy to come up with a song that would be a campaign song that would lend itself to the thought that Crump was going to clean up the city. He was going to close up these spots. There were plenty of people who didn't think that he could do what he said he would do. So Handy, sort of with tongue-in-cheek, came up with a song called Mr. Crump Don't 'Low. And it was all about what Mr. Crump was not going to allow if and when he became elected mayor. But why don't we play that for you? Hear Handy's own voice telling you essentially what I've just said, and then playing you himself his own original, authentic Mr. Crump Don't 'Low.
There were two favorite bands in the town, Bynum and Eckford's. There was a mayor campaign coming on, a three-cornered contest. The other two bands were hired by two candidates, which left my band open to be hired by those who managed the campaign of Mr. E.H. Crump, who was running for mayor. The bands played the popular music of the day, New York hits. And I knew that a band of strangers playing the same music wouldn't get as much recognition as if we would write something of our own that would give us a stamp, a certain stamp. And I wrote a little tune that I called Mr. Crump, because Mr. Crump was running on a clean-up ticket. He was going to drive out gambling and drive out other things with which gambling was associated. And there were those among us who didn't believe he was going to do what he said he was going to do. You know how things are today. So we made up a little song called Mr. Crump, and it went something like this. You want to be my man, you got to give me $40 down. You want to be my man, you got to give me $40 down. Don't be my man, your baby's going to leave this town. Well, Mr. Crump don't allow no easy riders here. Mr. Crump don't allow no easy riders here. care what Mr. Crump don't allow. We go to Bell House anyhow. Mr. Crump won't allow it. Ain't gonna have it here. Well, we played that on the corner of Main and Madison, and it stopped the traffic. Stenographers danced with the bosses. Men ran up to the band to know what's the name of that. And we said, it's Mr. Crump. We had to play it over and over and over.
So now you know, as Handy told you himself, all about Mr. Crump Don't Lie, written in 1909. I'm going to introduce you now to Bukka, who is going to play a couple more songs for you, his own compositions. But first, let me tell you, in the words of a man who plays the blues, what he thinks the blues are all about. I think this is fabulous, and I don't have it memorized. I'd like to read it to you. This fellow said, "What I think about that makes the blues so good is that when a fellow writes a blues and writes it with a feeling, with great harmony, and it's got all those two words in it, of all the things that have happened to so many people to make them so blue, well, that's what makes the feeling in the blues." Isn't that kind of priceless? So let's go to Bukka White. I want to tell you a little bit about Bukka and ask him to play another song or two. Before I forget it, when he gets on this air again, notice on his finger a piece of conduit. In the old days, that was the neck of a bottle, and his style of playing is called bottleneck playing. Bottleneck playing has nothing to do with the shape of the guitar, but simply means that when that finger of his goes over the frets, it makes a whining, almost human tone, so that Bukka's guitar is, in effect, another musician playing with him rather than an accompanist, so much so that at times he will even stop and let the guitar talk for him. Bukka has been recording, I expect, for 45 years. He's internationally known. He has given concerts in Europe at least twice that I know of, 1967 and in 1970, and he has played at Carnegie Hall. Booker T. Washington White, better known as Bukka White. And Bukka, what are you going to play for us next?
The old lady.
Let her go, boy.
I'll play the old lady. Yes, you're talking about old. You're talking about young. There's no difference what you're talking about. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Cause old lady ain't fine. You take a young woman left around and around. When you find her, she gon' start to line. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Cause old lady ain't fine. Got old lady sick in the bed. When I goes around and she rub my head. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Cause old lady ain't fine. Got old lady sits at the window blind. When you see me come, she jumps up and down. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Cause old lady ain't fine. You take a young woman, love to run around. When you find her, she gon' have a dime. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Give me an old lady. Cause old lady ain't fine. the yellow blowing coming down the line. Yes, you know I used to be a hobo. I used to be a hobo on a freight train. I do all right until I hear when the old freight train blow. Boys, I can see it even on down the line. You know when I hear freight train blow, I want to start packing up my clothes. 'Cause that used to be my trade. Riding all up and down the road, I hate to hear freight train blow. Boy, I hate really give me the freight train blow. My mother and my father said, son, I got too old. Will you please tell me you won't try to hobo no more? You know I have to be standing my mother's door. Early in the morning when that freight train blow. I had a blues so bad, God knows I foam on. Tears come falling down. I said, I can't stand it. I can't stand to hear that freight train blow. Boy, it makes me feel so blue. I just feel like blacking up on my blow. Well, the railroad special told my mother, told my father too. He said, don't try to keep me from hoboing. He be doing it all in night. Mother said, he done got too old. He done got old, traveling up and down the road. I got to do something for my recreation. Things I used to do, boy, I don't do it no more. Well, I don't drink whiskey, and I don't drink no wine. All I want to do is ride a freight train. Boy, from town to town, I don't drink no whiskey, and I sure don't drink no wine. I won't want to do nothing, I don't want to do nothing but ride a freight train from town to town. Sometime I be walking along the streets and I hear a freight train blow. I have a funny feel I go round and round, but I know anything I be on and round. I don't want to do nothing but ride from town to town. When I hear a freight train blow, I know it look like I'm losing my mind. Yeah, now whip it down now. Yeah. Them old freight train blue. Them old freight train blue is all right by me. Them old freight train blue. Boy, it make me want to ride up and down the line. Sometimes I feel like, oh boy, he's so bad. You can see the tears falling down on the ground.
Thank you, Bukka. You know, I don't know whether Bukka played Bottleneck or not after my big description of Bottleneck, but if he didn't, he will before he gets through. We have another number coming up. So back to my story about Mr. Crump Don't Lie. I left you in 1909. Of course, the rest is history. Mr. Crump did become the mayor of Memphis, and Handy rode on to fame. And 3 years later, in 1912, Handy decided to rewrite that song. He couldn't continue to play Mr. Crump Don't Lie. That was hardly respectful for a man who was now mayor. So Handy rewrote that tune into something that became known as the Memphis Blues. famous to us and to the world because it was the first jazz tune ever to contain what we musicians call a jazz break. You know what I mean by jazz break? That's an improvised interlude in between two written bars of music, like da 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 da. Why don't I go back to Handy's own voice again? We have it here, and let him tell you about that himself and play you Memphis Blues, and he'll tell you where the break came in.
Folks have just been down to Memphis town. That's where the people smile on you all the while. Hospitality, they were good to me. I couldn't spend a dime, I had the grandest time. I went out dancing with the Tennessee deer. They had a fella there named Handy with a band you should hear. While those white folks swayed, how those band boys played real harmony. I never will forget the tune that Handy called the Memphis Blues. Oh, them blues. They had a fiddler there that always slickened his hair, and folks he sure could pull some bow. And when the big bassoon seconded the trombone screw, that's where the break came in. It moaned just like a sinner on revival day, on revival day. That melancholy strain, that ever-haunting refrain, is like a morning sorrow song. Here comes the very part that wraps a spell around my heart. That's where the break came on the sax. It sets me wild to hear that loving tune again, the Memphis Blues.
Nostalgia, memories, the blues, Pee Wee's Saloon, where Handy wrote most of his great blues, Beale Street Blues, St. Louis Blues, Memphis Blues, Beale Street, where it's always Saturday night. Long gone days. Let's go back to Bukka White. Bukka, play a few more for us, please.
That's Bukka. Well, I got close to the house to shut the door, and I sat on the porch. I always heard the people say you could play somebody back if they was in love with you. So this one I played her. After a while, I seen the front door crack, and they let the door down. When they let the door down right slow and easy, the window began to heist. That's why Catherine was. I come and sang this little song. Please, mama's getting late over the night. Baby, won't you please treat your daddy right? You got mad at me cause I was drinking my good whiskey. And you told me you didn't even want to smell my breath. But I tell you what I'll do this time if you take me back. I'll never drink no whiskey no more. And I will be at home when the sun go down. I'll be the first one fast the front door. And if you just take me back, Tell it like it is. Lord have mercy. Catherine got up and put on her clothes. She turned the lamp down low. I kept on playing it blue while she's getting ready to go. She told her grandmother she'll see in the merry night. I said I'll never be teaching no more. Baby, it's really killing me, baby, since you pack your clothes. But if you forgive me this time, I ain't gonna never drink no whiskey no more. Play it now. Walking off from her grandma's home, Catherine folded up her own. I just kept on singing them lonesome blues. She said, play them, daddy, till I get in your home. I said, thank you, ma'am. Oh, yeah. I said, baby, I thank you, ma'am. You can ask bet your bottom dollar, little girl. Your daddy ain't gonna never take you wrong.
Whiskey